Okay, everyone, hello. My name is Ricky Shabazz. I have the honor and privilege of being the president of San Diego City College. I want to welcome you to our bi-weekly College Council meeting. College Council is a group of the constituency leaders on the campus, and I will introduce them, which we use by roll call. But before I introduce our colleagues who are the leaders from our campus, we have a very special guest with us. Dr. Kim Lowry is a vice president in Texas. And Dr. Lowry, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the College Council.
Thank you, Dr. Shabazz, and hello, everyone. Like Dr. Shabazz said, my name is Kimberly Lowry. I serve as the Vice President of Instruction and Student Services at Lone Star College Houston North in Houston, Texas, part of the Lone Star College system. So I am part of one of 7 colleges in the system. I have this bright light. We serve just under 100,000 students, but very happy and excited to just be sharing space with you guys. I am a California native, so always excited about the opportunity to talk with other people that are in California. I don't get that a lot in Texas, so I'm just really happy to be here and appreciative of the opportunity to kind of shout out Dr. Shabazz right now. So.
Well, great. Dr. Lara, we are happy to welcome you into our San Diego City College family. As a college president, I get a lot of requests for people who aspire to be college presidents to shadow me, and we try to make those opportunities available, whether they are deans or directors or vice presidents. And so we're so glad to welcome you into our San Diego City College family. I'm going to begin to share the agenda for today. There we go. And so College Council, again, is the highest level of governance at San Diego City College. And we have the leaders from our various constituency groups. Any member of College Council or any member of the San Diego City College community can submit an agenda item for placement on College Council for either discussion, presentation, or the like. The way you do that is by either emailing the president's office, and let me acknowledge Aaron Flanagan and the great work. We could not run this meeting without Aaron's support and leadership. And so if you'd like to have an agenda item on College Council, you can email Aaron, and we'd love to have you present or ask questions of the members of College Council, or you can reach out to the leaders of your respective constituency groups. And speaking of the leaders of your constituency groups, I'm going to introduce each of them. You can unmute yourself and identify yourself. Once I say your name, we'll be able to take down in the meeting notes that you're here. Paul Alexander, President of the Academic Senate.
I'm here.
Good to see you, Paul. Always excited to see what t-shirt you have on, Paul. You've got quite the t-shirt collection there.
Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Shabazz. I don't know if you can read the quote. It's a James Baldwin quote. I won't take up too much time, but I appreciate it.
Nice. Tilly Chavez is not feeling well today. I believe that Aaron is doing double duty here. And speaking of Aaron, and we have a number of Aarons at San Diego City College, probably more Aarons than I've ever worked with. But Aaron Deddy is standing in for Tilly. He's also the administrative representative and also celebrating his 1-year anniversary as our great acting dean over exercise science and athletics. Aaron.
I am present and 365 present and happy. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for Denise for acknowledging the great work of Aaron Deddy. We're so glad to have you as part of our City College family and a City College alum, former athlete, Aaron Deddy. We're going to get to go to Disneyland here, hopefully pretty soon. Send my regards to your family. Dean Robbie Ewell, one of our amazing deans, chair of the Institutional Technology Council.
President Ricky.
Great, Robbie. Thank you and your team for the great work they're doing with technology and making sure people have computers. Caesar, our hardworking public information officer, bless his heart for reading my documents, and thank you for your help today, Caesar, with the communication that I sent out to campus. Hopefully you all had a chance to read it. Caesar?
I am here. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Jocelyn Hill, supervisory representative of the SPA group.
I'm present, and yes, did read your email, and thank you so very much.
Great, Jocelyn. Nadia is the president of the chairs cabinet, which we all say also say president of the chairs of chairs, or the chair of the chairs. That's a lot of chairs, Nadia.
A lot of chairs. That's what my dad says. Hi, I'm here.
Yes. And I believe this is 4 meetings in a row, Josh. You're about to break every record. We are so glad that our representative of our student government is here, Josh.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Shabazz. I'm excited to be here once again.
Yeah, good. Good to see you, Josh. Dr. Susan Murray, Dean of Institutional Effectiveness.
Present. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, our president-elected academic senate, Dr. Masa Omai.
Present. Good to see you, everybody.
Always. Dr. John Parker, Vice President, Administrative Services.
I'll take president. Good afternoon, everyone.
Sean Ryan, Vice President of the Classified Senate.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm present.
Good to see you, Sean. Denise Wisenhunt, our wonderful Vice President of Student Services.
Present.
Good, thank you for joining us, Denise. And that is those are our representatives of College Council. So if you ever have a desire to ask questions or put forth an agenda item, you can either email the president's office or reach out to one of our wonderful leaders within our constituency groups here at San Diego City College. This meeting is being recorded. It is also being broadcast live via YouTube for our wonderful campus to get updates on the governance structure and the discussion points that we're having as a college. And speaking of discussions, would someone like to make a motion for approval of the November 3rd meeting notes?
I motion approval. This is Jocelyn Hill.
Great, thank you, Jocelyn. We've got a first by Jocelyn. Would someone like to second the motion?
Second, Aaron Deddy.
Thank you, Aaron. Wonderful job. You guys have been doing this once or twice before. We've got a first or a second. Any further discussion of the meeting notes for November 3rd? Hearing none, all in favor indicate so by unmuting yourself and saying aye.
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 Is there anyone who would like to abstain or vote down the meeting notes? Hearing none, motion carries. Of course, this is probably the most awkward way of doing Zoom is having to vote like that. But nonetheless, I'll turn it over to Dr. Parker to provide an update on the task force on policing.
Thank you, President Shabazz. During our last meeting, I believe it was last week, I'm sorry, I don't recall the date, the task force committee was able to meet with Lieutenant Delgado, who provided approximate 90-minute presentation, followed up by a Q&A session in which he presented the history of the department, the background of his experience, the background of the officers that are assigned to City College, in addition to their annual training, engagement and involvement with the campus community. I've been working with Dr. Murray on the survey, and the committee actually has agreed to the survey. We have about 14 or 15 questions. The survey will be going out to both employees and students. And one thing that we'll add in my discussion with Dr. Murray, she suggested that in order to quantify some of the data and analyze some of the data, we add demographics as well in terms of age and race, so we can slice and analyze the data accordingly. So that survey will be forthcoming. We'll be reviewing it once it is loaded into SurveyMonkey, I believe, is it that we're using, Dr. Murray? Once it's loaded, the committee will actually complete the survey. We'll test the survey out before distributing it to the respective communities. We also will be inviting Chief Ramos to our next meeting next month, and thereby just a brief introduction. He will not be giving a presentation, followed by a Q&A session also. With that, the committee is requesting an extension for the recommendation to College Council from December 8th to February the 23rd, I believe. There's no January meeting, correct? For College Council. So
That
that's
is correct. It's in February.
February. Okay, great. So we're requesting that extension through February the 23rd, thereby allowing us to analyze the results of the surveys and come up with our recommendations in a timely manner. Any questions regarding the status of the committee, timeline? Okay.
I have a question, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So do we know the committee makeup, and also when will the survey projected to go out?
The survey will be, I'll answer the last one first. The survey, we're hoping the first week after of November. I'm sorry, the last week of November. That week of November 30th is also the first week of December. Hopefully we can have it go out that week, unless Dr. Susan Murray says otherwise. But we have the committee has representation from each constituency group. And I can, if you're looking for the numbers, I can bring that up for you in pretty short order. Any other questions while I search for the committee?
I think, one of I think it sounds reasonable, and certainly I hope that others believe that what we are challenged by is that the data gathering, right? And so the data that the committee is requesting in terms of budgets and other things are going to the district committee before they come over to the college committee. And so a lot of the things that we hope to discuss as a committee, and I'm not on the committee, Dr. Parker is representing the administration as he gets the other members. There's been a delay in getting the items because it goes to the district's committee first. And do you have these names, Dr. Parker?
Yeah, I do. I'm just pulling up the chart here. Sorry, I've tried to file with some redundancy, and oftentimes it gets lost in my naming convention. So we have myself as the chair, Darius Spearman is the co-chair. We have two representatives. Well, actually, Darius is one of the representatives, but we have two representatives from Academic Senate, two from administration, ASG, classified.
And Dr. Parker, just for the record, would you mind sharing the names of those individuals?
Sure, sorry. We'll go through the names. So we'll have Darius Spearman as co-chair. We have from Academic Senate, Tracy McGee. Administration is Roxanne Salas and Roberto Valadez. And ASG is DeMarcus Andrews. Classified, Kim Palick and Ashley Birch. And SPA is Daniel Gonzalez and Majda Nazraoui.
Yeah, and I guess technically Roxanne would be SPA as well.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, Dr. Parker, sending the names via email to the committees of College Council, that would be great.
Okay, can I just include the charge, which includes the members?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Any other questions, Paul? Any questions?
Yeah, I didn't hear, maybe I missed it, students.
DeMarcus? Did I hear DeMarcus was the student?
DeMarcus Andrews.
Okay.
Yeah, and ASG, bless their hearts, and that's why I'm so excited every time I see Josh. They've been having some challenges, as you could probably suspect, getting participation on some of these committees because we're working virtually. We like to have more than one student, but we're certainly happy to have the student that we have. And so certainly, Josh, if there was an opportunity to get another student on that committee, please refer that person to Dr. Parker.
Yeah, for sure. There are a lot of students who are wanting to actually serve on committees. So I think we can find someone who's willing or who will serve on that committee. As well as if there's any students right now who are watching, we would love to have more participation and more people on the ASG board as well.
Great. Any other questions for Dr. Parker?
This is Erin. This is just an FYI. Dr. Parker, if you want to email me that charge and list, I will send it out to make sure that it gets to all of the people who are also representing permanent members of College Council today.
Excellent. Thank you, Erin. It's on its way now.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other questions, we'll go to the next agenda item. Thank you, Dr. Parker.
You're welcome, and thank you. Is that an action item?
No, it
Okay.
doesn't need to be, unless you would like to formally bring it to a vote. No one objected. I don't think it.
Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Institutional Technology Committee adding a faculty member to the committee membership. Robbie, I'm going to turn that to you.
Okay, thank you, Ricky. Actually, we're very fortunate. The Institutional Technology Council actually has a new faculty member in Darius Spearman, who's joining us effective on our first meeting with him will be tomorrow. It is important because we actually have over time, we've lost a few faculty members due to changes in position and other items. So now we're getting closer to our numbers that we're trying to have. And currently, I believe we also put in a request for an additional faculty member. We actually asked for two, and so Darius kindly responded to being one of those. We still have another vacancy for a faculty member. The timing of his arrival couldn't be better. Primarily, we're speaking of committees, we're actually breaking down into smaller work groups to address particular technology review elements, some of which is software review, opportunities in terms of software platforms, in which is not just who is on our council or the work group, but also we are trying to bring in content specialists to help us with given software if it particularly hits their area. We probably have some more new things to share. I don't want to bore you with too much detail, but the state, a good driver here is that the state has renewed the free packages for a number of things that we were in the midst of reviewing. Some things we're going to terminate as a free offering as early as December 31st, 2020. That's now been extended an additional 6 months for some of them. And then there's some other packages that literally we need to take a really close look even to give it consideration. So for those who don't know, part of our role, and as we see it, is also to provide an understanding of whether this, the software offering, the technology offering, whether it is suitable for our environment, whether it actually operates and functions as it should. And hopefully we're in a position at some point to give a recommendation for each interested package to share that with the rest of the institution for further deliberation about whether or not it should be something that is part of either our classroom or, if you will, our virtual space where it impacts our students directly. So most importantly, it's one of the first steps, which is to see, is it even worth pursuing it to next level? And that for that, we often are very appreciative of the different skill sets that come to bear for us to know whether this package actually meets the mark. Last comment would be there are some products that we are looking at that are not so much an individual package of choice, but some actually an operating platform or things that actually create the operating environment that have direct impact on our students, which have had controversy in the past. One of which would have been anti-plagiarism software. Many of you have been through those wars, and we had Turnitin at one time, roughly about 10 years ago, and we moved on to different packages as we are now moving even further into Canvas. And still, I just want to let parties know that there's still other packages being tossed in our direction. And when something like that appears on the scope, because it is controversial, we want to make sure that we have the proper parties involved in helping us to make an assessment of whether it's even worth pursuing. And also, is it right for City College instruction? So there's a technical side to it, then there's a pedagogical side. And of course, there's always a safeguard for our student as the patron side to make sure that they are not being unfairly exposed or overexposed in any way. So this is a group effort. It starts on some level with the council, or really it starts with people bringing select products to our attention. The council is obligated to take these things on, work through the work groups. We're so happy that Darius has joined us because it's always good to have a person who's interested in technology on the council. And in the work group, quite frankly, then the next step is to give proper recommendations upon ample review. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we are not the only ones who provide part of this review. Our reviews are also taking place on the district level through online pathways as they reviewed some packages. And also on our own campus, we have our distance education committee led by our faculty mentor, who has actually looked and helped us with the review and evaluation of select software packages, particularly the big overarching ones like Canvas and the like. So it's a part of our DNA now, and we're still hoping to fill one additional faculty position as we go forward for the council itself.
Great. Any questions for Robbie?
Yeah, Robbie, could you share the charge maybe through Aaron with us?
I certainly can. The charge also, I put in an application for 2 faculty members, so all that information was included at that time as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
no,
very important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've appreciated both Paul and Nadia and other leaders on this on campus, that we are living in a time where a lot of companies are willing to allow us to access their software free, and it hasn't necessarily been vetted. We actually set off a firestorm in the state. Kudos to the faculty at City College for raising a concern about proctorial and placing students in lockdown. And so we need to do a much better job of free is not usually free in some cases. And we wouldn't want to further subject any harm upon ourselves, our students, our community, because someone offered us an opportunity to pilot something that we haven't fully vetted. And so I think more than ever, Robbie, your committee council group has to play a very important role, not to impede on academic freedom, but to serve as a resource. And I agree with Paul's words that many of us are not experts in technology and these software, and then we find out that it is doing something that we never intended for it to do. And so we enlist you all to keep us abreast of these matters.
And if I may offer one small comment, in some cases, we may find that there may be something that's offensive that can be disabled as part of the software functions. So we're obligated to make sure that option is known as we're making the final assessment. But I would just to echo your point, Ricky, so many resources are web or cloud-based these days. And we also have to be particularly cautious as to how much exposure, how much information is left outside of our own control and environment to third parties. So that's something we are also concerned about. Ultimately, who owns the data, who protects our students?
Yes, and I can tell you, as someone who spends probably more time than I'd like to admit on social media, there's a couple of documentaries out there on Netflix, but what scares me is that every time I talk about something, I'm going through a remodel at my house, and then I go on Instagram, and all of a sudden there's all these ads for remodeling. That should scare all of us, that things are watching us at a level that we should be more aware of. Any other questions for Robbie? Okay, well, great.
Chair?
Appreciate it, Robbie. Yes.
Yes, I do. I just have one comment. I would like to actually serve on this committee if you guys are looking for student representation, because I do understand like there are a lot of concerns from students' perspectives, especially when it comes to like proctorial software and equity concerns that can go along with it.
Well, Josh, we would welcome you. We actually are ironically looking for a student from ASG.
Perfect.
But Josh, let's make sure, just in terms of a way of protocol, Robbie, if you could shoot an email to Dean Marciano Perez and include Josh in that email, and let's make sure that the nomination goes through the ASG process, Josh. I'm sure you'll be the selected one, but protocol is also important.
Very good.
Anything else? Very important matter to discuss. And thank you, Josh, for your leadership in volunteering to be on that committee. COVID cases on campus. I'm going to turn to Dr. Parker to provide an overview of the now county reporting and ultimately the New York Times and other media outlets that are seeking information from colleges.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Shabazz. We had one just yesterday, oddly enough. If there's any reports from employees, whether on campus or not, all are not actually, with the exception of a few that are approved, it needs to come through the deans and the VPs to my office, to me in particular. And I copy our internal HR and 2 individuals from the district risk management team, Frank Finnessy, I believe, I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name, and Karen Woods. And usually they will follow up with a series of questions. Also, well, when I'm forwarding that to risk management, I'm also copying with a policy for employee COVID protocol for employees and COVID protocol for supervisors, in addition to a COVID-19 request for leave if it is needed. Risk management team will follow up with a series of questions to determine if it is an individual that may need to come to campus in the not too distant future, that they are cleared by the risk management team to come to campus. And the district risk management team also reports this to the county health officials, to the county health office. In the instructions, I think it alludes to the supervisor doing so, but the risk management team makes it clear in their response that they are the reporting entity to the county. Any questions on the process for reporting COVID? And this is exposure or positive testing. So the most recent one is an employee had come in close contact with another individual who had tested positive, and they showed no symptoms and they had to quarantine and whatnot. So either they test positive or if they've come in close contact with someone else who has tested positive. Any questions?
Yeah, so, we can see these requests for data increasing. And in fact, for our faculty and classified professionals who are watching via YouTube, it is so very important that even if a student in your class who's remotely even mentions that they have COVID, please let your dean and Dr. Parker know so that we can follow the proper protocols. This has become so very important, particularly as San Diego County has entered into the purple phase, which is triggering more restrictive accommodations, really, or the lack thereof, for people being out in the public.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mention students either. It's a similar process for students, especially for the students in the hard to convert classes and those that are perhaps in clinicals, nursing students that are in clinicals. They're asking if they are quarantined for 14 days and if we notified the clinical sites of the possible exposures.
Any questions for Dr. Parker? Hearing none, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Murray for the next two items.
All right, thank you. First one is some updates on institutional effectiveness and institutional planning. These reports were on the agenda at the last college council meeting and I think were deferred. So since that time, we did hold our community forum on November 6th with about 30 participants, which we were pleased with for a remote event. It was about 2/3 community representatives and 1/3 college representatives who engaged in some discussion about community perspectives on our programs and services, our facilities, and opportunities for partnerships. And those conversations were really productive. We have the copies of the Padlets that the small groups worked on that we will be adding to our collection of information and sharing back out to the college. And I think there was a lot of interest in following up with some additional interaction with our community partners to dig into some specific issues a little bit more. So any questions about the community forum before I move on?
I want to just echo our appreciation to the outreach team, your office, everyone involved, Kim, Caesar, in the marketing of it. We were extremely pleased with those who participated, and it seemed that the community was really engaged in offering suggestions on how City College can continue to be a beacon in the community.
Yes, thank you. Another thing that we have been working on is updating and clarifying some of our documents in support of institutional planning. So what you should be seeing is our planning resources webpage. It's under the About menu. Find the institutional effectiveness page under administration and leadership, and then there's a tab for planning resources. So the new things that we have to highlight right now are this planning cycle diagram. Much appreciation to Kim LaRue in the communications office for assisting with this. This is an effort to capture on one page how some of the various pieces that we have been working on as a campus interact with each other. So we have an annual cycle of planning activities that take place in the fall and the spring at the program level. Our deans are now developing area plans, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then all of our programs and services are engaged in program review. That information feeds into the resource allocation process that takes place each spring. And all of these things in the center are sources of data and information that can be used in this planning. We have program outcomes assessment, both student learning outcomes at the program level and administrative program outcomes. We have student learning at the course level and also have our institutional student learning outcomes. We have been rolling out new data dashboards for our program review data, moving away from static packets in PDF format to a more interactive format that allows people to look at second order interactions. So those dashboards have been distributed to faculty chairs and to deans and VPs at this point in time. We're looking forward to having our intranet platform and sharing them with the college there. We have event plans and evaluations, the planning that goes on around the events, large scale events and activities that we do that document what happened, so that that can be referred to if the event is repeated, and also the impact and any lessons learned. The deans, VPs, and managers have been engaged in identification of metrics, just the tracking types of data that capture the effort of the programs and services that they oversee. And then each administrator is required to define and submit annual goals all the way up through President Shabazz. So at the bottom, this is the flow of information from the program level to areas overseen by deans, to divisions overseen by vice presidents, and then up to the institutional level. So as we're getting this information connected, it's available to us as we're doing institutional planning as well. So this is the graphic version. Also linked on that planning resources webpage is a more narrative version. So depending on your preference, text or pictures, you've got some resource information to refer to. And then I was going to speak really briefly about the area plans. Just making sure that screen share captured. Area plans are being completed by deans and administrators. There's a lot of connection to the information that's included in program review. And you'll see that there are various references to TaskStream in this document because that information is being captured there. The TaskStream format is something that we have invested in as a district, and we have invested in terms of the licensing for the software. We've also invested a lot in it as a campus in terms of designing templates and creating processes for documenting information. That's working really well, but it doesn't work as well for sharing that information back out. So this format allows deans to put together kind of a high-level summary of what's going on that then can be shared in that flow that I just outlined up to the president, who then has access to this information in the reporting that he does at the district level. So questions about any of these planning resources?
Well, Dr. Murray, I appreciate all the work that you and your team, with support from Kim and Caesar. These things are important, folks, because we will have an accreditation visit in the spring of 24. And so if we do all of these things now on an annual basis, when these folks show up, we will be able to shine in a way that City College always shines. If you begin to skip some of these things, then you're going to place unnecessary stress on yourself when you have to recreate event plans and area plans and SLOs and all of these things that serve as artifacts that we are in fact doing what it is we say we are doing. The other thing I would say is that once you do all of these things once, it should be a matter of tweaking them. You shouldn't have to start from scratch each time. And so if you haven't had a chance to do these things, please do so. I guarantee you it will pay off in the long run when folks are asking for evidence of what it is that you've been doing.
All right, and speaking of accreditation, the other thing I have to bring to you today is an update on our midterm report. We've shared this timeline previously. We are here in fall And we have our draft report ready for constituency review. We started that process yesterday with Academic Senate and ASG. The link to our draft has been shared with College Council, Academic Senate, ASG. I will email it out to the DL later today. I'm just catching up with documentation here, and we'll get it posted on the website as well. We are looking at a first read of the document this month and a second read with the meetings scheduled, the next round of meetings scheduled right at the end of the semester. We need to have the report to the district level by the first week in January for review at Chancellor's Cabinet, and then on to the Board of Trustees. And Mesa and Miramar are also on the same accreditation cycle as City. Continuing ed is a little bit different. Theirs actually is due a little bit earlier than ours, but the board is hearing all of these at the same time in February. So that's one of the things that's driving the timeline. So the document for campus review is posted on Google. It has comments open so that if you have a question or a suggestion about anything in the document, you can highlight it and add a comment. If you are interested in seeing what ACCJC is asking of us in the midterm report, we've also included a link to their guidelines. The primary focus of the report is following up on the recommendations that were given to the college following our last comprehensive review, which was in 2017. So we've been doing a tremendous amount of work, and we have tried to capture that in both the report and the evidence. But in this review process, if you have something to add, an example to share, if you see something that has been missed, please let us know. And then in addition to following up on the recommendations that ACCJC gave us in that review, we're also reporting on our progress in meeting the plans that we set out for ourselves. So that means our 2017 strategic plan. It means the issues that we identified in the quality focus essay section of the self-evaluation report from 2017. And again, lots of work, lots of progress. And this is just a summary level view. There's no visit associated with this report. It will be reviewed by the commission and acted on in terms of a formal acceptance when the commission meets next June. So any questions about the midterm report?
Well, hearing none, thank you. Do we need, so we're going to come back, Dr. Murray, for a actual formal approval? Or,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, it will return to College Council for action after the other constituency groups have had their second read.
Yes, that's what I thought. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. All right. So let's move on with the agenda. If there are no questions for Susan, thank you, Dr. Murray. Next is an item for approval, which is a land acknowledgement to the Kumeyaay Nation for our website and possibly usage at other places on campus. Let me see if I can bring this up. There it is. I want to thank Caesar for working with me and others on this, and I'll tell you the backstory as soon as I can share it. Should be in your agenda items. For those who don't know, I actually have a bachelor's degree in Native American Studies. It was something that just happened as a first-generation college student. I was actually majoring in engineering, and I was taking the Native American Studies courses as some filler courses. But as I began to take them, I actually started to be very interested in ethnic studies in a way that it was amazing that I had not learned these things in high school. And certainly, you study things like Thanksgiving and other historical holiday related things, and you know that there are Native Americans, but to actually majoring in Native Americans and learn the history throughout the Americas was something that was very fascinating and led to me actually getting a degree. At the time, UC Davis had the #1 Native American Studies program in the nation. Fast forward to me arriving at City College in 2017 and joining the board of the Museum of Man, which is now the Museum of Us in Balboa Park, courtesy of Dean Robbie Ewell's a wonderful wife. I learned the history of Balboa Park, which is fascinating history. And while we don't have time to go into all of the history, Balboa Park was inhabited some of the original land by the Kumeyaay Nation. Now, the Kumeyaay Nation is a rather large nation of Native Americans that were located in the San Diego area that actually stretched into Mexico prior to there being a Mexico-American border. And so it is a fact that San Diego City College, as well as all of the other buildings and organizations that function in Balboa Park, are actually on some of the original land. And there was something called the Panama exhibit that took place, I want to say in the early 1900s in Balboa Park, where the Kumeyaay Nation was actually removed from the current land that makes up City College and Balboa Park because they weren't native enough. And the folks that were doing the Panama exhibit brought in native tribes that fit the stereotypical image of Native Americans. And so when I learned this and connected to my background in Native American studies, and then I would go to departments like Chicano Studies and Black Studies, and many of the CBBers, which is a counseling program through San Diego State, would do these land acknowledgements saying that the college sits on the land once inhabited by the Kumeyaay Nation. I actually had an opportunity to go to a meeting of CEOs in the region, and I did a land acknowledgement, and to my surprise was the chairman of one of the Kumeyaay Nation from East County, and he thanked me for acknowledging he and his people. And very often in American culture, we don't acknowledge that there are Native Americans who are still here, existing, flourishing, and being challenged by the very things that we work toward with our focus on social justice and educational equity. And I also learned from one of our great deans, Lori Erica, that one of our now retired Chicano Studies professor, Enrique Dabalos, actually, when we were building one of the buildings at City College, placed what could be characterized as an offering to the Kumeyaay and the construction site that the building would eventually be built upon. I want to thank Paul for connecting me with a member of the Kumeyaay Nation, I believe Kumeyaay Nation, Stan. He and I have not been able to connect our schedules, but what you have here is a draft, and I'm fine if the committee wants this to be a first reading, because I would like to reach out to a member of the Kumeyaay to see that they are okay with this. But that's the background. Oh, there's one other piece. When I traveled to Australia for work, I was invited to give a speech in Australia to their community college system. I was moved that every official event I went to, there was an acknowledgement of the Aboriginal nation in Australia. And in fact, there was a chief from an Aboriginal tribe who gave a speech, and he made a beeline straight for me after his speech, and he welcomed me personally into his country. And so I've been compelled, knowing the history, knowing our commitment to social justice and educational equity, that I thought that this was a a thought-provoking, necessary thing to do for all the students who come through our doors, for all of the employees who may not know this history, to ensure that the history is in fact etched into our college's existence. So what we came up with as a draft is the San Diego City College acknowledges that our campus sits on the traditional land of the Kumeyaay Nation. We recognize the Kumeyaay people, past and present, and their land with honor and gratitude. So once finalized, we envisioned that this land acknowledgement would go on our website, would be a fixture on campus on some banners, to ensure that these folks are acknowledged, that they exist, and they're not just written out of the history books. Questions, thoughts, ideas? Any brave soul want to chime in? Everybody zoomed out.
No, I love it. I mean, I'll say this is in your comments, just the reality that that history has been erased, and we act as if the indigenous people of this country and the First Nation people of this country exist only on our cowboy movies to kind of entertain us. It's an important reminder, and so you know, I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront of our mind and reaching out to some of the elders, Dr. Stan Rodriguez and others, in that process, and making sure that, you know, we go the step further and of not just kind of acknowledging it and putting it there, but what does that mean to us on this land, right? So one thing, it's important to acknowledge and remember that history, and then to challenge one another to ask ourselves what that means, because even now, currently, the Kumeyaay are fighting against some of their sovereign land being taken over by the Trump wall that hasn't gone through the correct kind of sovereign negotiations and everything like that. So this is a continuing act of violence that happens to them, and so making sure that we're tapped in as much as possible, not only aware, but asking, you know, ourselves and asking others what we can do really to address, to recognize the wrongs and to address those in whatever ways possible. So thank you for bringing this forward. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for your words and thoughts. Any others want to chime in?
Yeah, I'd really like to say or ask a quick question. I am definitely in favor of everything that was presented. My only question is, have we gotten feedback from the Kumeyaay Nation?
No, Josh. Paul connected me with Dr. Rodriguez, and he and my schedules have not been able to match up. So before we officially approve this, I absolutely intend to run it by, as Paul says, some of the elders in the Kumeyaay. The Kumeyaay are actually a number of communities within San Diego. So there's just not just one, there are several of them I've learned through history, or excuse me, through research. And so I'm planning to reach out to the chairman who I met in the meeting where I made the original land acknowledgement, and to connect with Dr. Stan Rodriguez, who Paul connected me with. And my goal would be to able to do that before the end of the semester, so that this would come back after I've gotten some feedback from them. And I can assure you that we made every attempt to get some feedback for all the reasons that Paul just outlined. I want to be clear. I'm not doing this because this is the cool thing to do now. I'm absolutely doing this because we want to ensure, now that I do know what I know about the Kumeyaay Nation, that they are etched in our history, so that they're not written out of the history books, being that our campus is in fact on the land that they were taken off of. Any other questions for the good of the, okay, hearing that, so this will come back for a formal vote at a later time once we've been able to connect with them. Holiday party will proceed on December 3rd as planned. We hope to have a flyer out by the end of the week. We had a very lively discussion with the vice presidents today about the annual holiday party. Here's what I can tell you. There will be the ugly Christmas sweater contest where the winner will win $250. There will be the dress your animal up in Christmas gear contest where the winner will also win $250. And then there will be the decorate your car contest. We're thinking of a drive-in for those who want to see each other, where we will give anyone who attends access to food that is remaining or kept aside during the monthly food hunger action days. And so we will also plan to give some folks some food since we can't be on campus to have that wonderful meal that we traditionally have. Caesar and Kim are going to work on a flyer, hoping to get it out. What we will also do is for the first 300 people who sign up, we will gift, and this is an employee related event. So the first 300 employees who sign up will be gifted a $20 gift card. So we're working out those details. We will have a flyer by Friday, hopefully, to get more information to you all. And thank you for the message. We will be giving out the food the food and the gift cards while supplies last. What it is we traditionally would spend about $7,000 on this event. We've got about 300 full-time employees, 1,000 total employees. We would traditionally have 300 people attending the event. So just doing some very simple math, that $20 would cover what we would normally use to feed the 300 plus people. Now, if 1,000 people all register to come, then that $20 is going to go down to about $7.50. But in either case, we want to be able to give people a small token of our appreciation since we can't be on campus. Any questions about the holiday party? So that is scheduled for December 3rd, I believe 11:30 to 1. We'll get that information out in the flyer now that we've solidified the information. Moving on the agenda. Spring convocation, that's an update we already talked about, is being moved to Wednesday, January 27th. Are there any other updates or announcements for the good of the order? Yes, Sean.
Hi, I just wanted to address the Classified Senate has a benefit drive for students, adopt a family. And I want to thank everyone who has donated for this. Students can apply for this through next week, through the 27th of November. So if you have any students you can reach out to that can apply, it's on the Classified Senate webpage. You can find that, that submission form.
Great, and the college is happy to donate or contribute $500. If you haven't connected with Dr. Parker on that, Dr. Parker, let's make sure that comes out of the ASP funds. And Aaron may be involved in that as well. We want to make sure we contribute to that drive. Thank you, Sean, to you and your colleagues for your efforts. Any other announcements? Denise, did you want to talk about the student leadership?
Well, the Student Leadership Summit is here. It begins, actually, it's in session. It began today from 3:30 to 4:40 p.m. And it is, encourage your students to attend. A DL was sent out. There's going to be some introspective talk in light of Black Lives Matter, Active Minds, mental health work that'll be done there. just really supporting students, also some social justice focus at this Leadership Summit. So you got an email today at around 3 o'clock. So please encourage your students to get involved.
Great. Any other announcements for the good of the order? It's the end of the day. We've all been in Zoom meetings all day. Folks, if there are no other updates, I appreciate everything you do for our students and our community. We will see you again. Please, please, for those of you who can, next week, do your very best, unless an emergency or a question from one of our amazing students. Let's try to not be on email. Let's try to take some time, read a book, go on a walk, unplug from the news and everything that is going on if you could. I had that same talk with the executive team saying, please do your very best to recharge so we can come back and be our best selves in helping our students. With that said, everybody enjoy their break next week. If there's anything I can do for you, please reach out so that I can help. Other than that, have a good evening. Be well. We'll see you in the next Zoom meeting.